Welcome to Bristol International Airport and welcome to the Carenado Cessna 208B Grand Caravan. We're going to be taking a look at the aircraft today. It's kind of almost a first look or initial impressions rather than an actual full complete review. As you can see, top left we have the frame rate. I just wanted to give you some sort of an idea as to the frame rates that I'm getting with this aircraft. This is custom scenery. This is Peerware scenery. I can't remember who developed it. It might be Pilot Plus. So I'm going to give you my first impressions based on a little bit of time spent with the aircraft and 2 or 3 complete flights. I'll be kind of comparing it in a way to the Carenado Pilatus PC-12, which is a similar aircraft. I'm pretty sure the PC-12 also uses the PT6 engine. Okay, the first thing I'll do is take a look at the graphics, internal and external, and then I'll talk about operating the aircraft in general. So first thing we'll do is actually, well, let's just take a look at the textures. So there are certain issues with it. If you look at those, the text doesn't look all that terrific, all that fantastic. If you look down here also, textures aren't as good as they might be. The obvious thing to point out is the attitude indicator is really hard to read. This is the normal position I'd use. If you look to the right, there's the co-pilot seat. So head position's kind of average. We're in kind of a strapped in position. It's very difficult to tell what attitude you're holding. Now that's obviously an issue at takeoff and at landing. It's always useful when you're flaring the aircraft to look down to check the attitude. Let's get this aircraft actually started. Fuel selectors are on. It's a really simple aircraft to start. Power lever idle, prop, let's put that to maximum, and let's start applying some power. Batteries on, flaps are most definitely up. See if I can see. It's difficult here to get a view of the of some of the switches, and oh, that's the wrong way. Let's take that. Let's take the 2D view. Some of the things are beginning to start, and just make sure I'm pressing the right button. Let's start the aircraft. We're looking for NG to start increasing. That will do. At this point, let's condition lever to low idle. So it's a very simple aircraft to start. Let's get these lights on. This is not exactly the textbook way to start the aircraft, but you can get an idea. You can start the aircraft pretty quickly and simply. It's not a difficult aircraft to start. Let's bring. Now this is where it gets a little bit odd. If you turn the start switch off using the down arrow, it won't work. The ignition on annunciator will still be lit, so the way around that is to click it off with the hand icon. and now everything is as it should be. So visually, let's take a look at this. You can see the textures are a little bit poor here. Can't remember which way. There you go. It's a bit of an adventure to figure out how you manipulate certain controls. Is it the scroll wheel? Is it a left click? So as you can see, it's a little bit lacking in clarity. It's nice to have the voltmeter actually working. I'm not at all sure about the battery. I can't see how that's showing me that it's charging, so it's 0. But you know, one thing you have to see with Carenado aircraft, and it does bear repeating, they don't produce study level aircraft, so there are always going to be shortcomings with how the aircraft operates, and you just have to live with that. You get good visuals, generally speaking, but you do lose out with the depth of the aircraft. You get a believable aircraft, an aircraft that flies and operates in a believable way without being massively in depth. So visually, you can take a look at the enunciators. Again, I wouldn't say that's high definition quality. So they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit in the sharpness, but again, looking at that, it's very difficult if you're trying to confirm your angle of attack, the pitch attitude of the aircraft on landing. It's very difficult looking at that instrument. Very difficult to spot it. The rest aren't so bad, it's just that one's really difficult to it's really difficult to read it. And again, with the autopilot controls, I'm zoomed in there pretty well. So this is a KFC 150 flight control system. Okay, here we are looking at the KAS 209B altitude selector. As you can see, you kind of lose definition. The comparison to the PC-12 here is that the PC-12 is a lot easier to read from this sort of position. This is really, really difficult. You can see now you can start to pick out arm and engage, and the KA185 enunciator starts to become clear, but it doesn't take much zooming out, and it starts to become really difficult to read. When you're looking at the engine instruments, you have to kind of zoom in a bit to really read the text. So texture quality could certainly be better. It's functional, but it could be significantly better than it is. Whether I wouldn't expect them to improve it at this point. Hopefully they'll learn from the experience, and this will be one of those aircraft that they will think, well, you know, we could have done better with that one. That it doesn't quite live up to the standards that I think Carenado are aiming for. So having looked at the inside, let's take a look at the externals. Now, looking at it externally, it actually does look pretty good. It has a feel to it that kind of reminds me of the Orbex style. It has kind of a subdued style to it that I actually do like. Now obviously, let's take a look at what else we can do with the aircraft, because with a Carenado aircraft we expect to be able to manipulate certain things, and all that works, and it's, you know, it's pretty good. It functions pretty well. I don't know how many times you'd actually take advantage of that, but it is a feature. Let's take a look at the different liveries. so it's going to take a little while to load them in. FedEx. Okay, pretty good. Go Tropic. Or Go Tropical, to be more exact. Plain white. Almost plain white. Cargo Master. And a military. DHL. That should take us back to the original. Oh, kind of grey. So, you know, there's a fair variety of different liveries. Let's close everything up. And the final one. A virtual cockpit windows, which just gives the windows a little bit of clarity. Turning it, it's kind of counterintuitive. It's applied now, but if you click it, it's taken off. You can see there, just kind of dims it a little bit. There's some dirt on the windscreen, and you can add, if I can get it to work. Oh, of course I can't get it to work to start the engine. But you can add static elements to it as well. And you have 2 seat configurations. I think there's another option somewhere. Yeah, switch to Super Cargo Master. There you go. So let's switch back. And it's changed the livery. So, as you can see, visually the modelling is pretty good. You'd expect that from Carenado. Reasonable selection of liveries. So you've got potentially a good variety of setups that you can use depending on where you want to fly. So, yeah, I think it's pretty faultless in terms of the visuals. Just a bit of a tighter zoom on it. These reflective surfaces, which, you know, I'm not quite sure if they're entirely realistic, whether it's a little bit overdone on the reflectivity of it. But it's certainly better than them being completely flat. So, again, it's a solid model and a decent range of liveries. So let's return back to inside the cockpit. Okay, we're back inside the aircraft, and how is it to fly? Well, I actually do prefer flying the 208 to flying the PC-12. Part of that is it's actually easier to start the aircraft. There's less looking around, going from the overhead down to the panel, the instrument panel. So it's an easier aircraft, or at least it feels easier. It's a more simple aircraft to start. PC-12 on approach just doesn't feel right to me. Lowering the landing gear, extending flaps, it just doesn't feel right. This feels a lot more fluid, a lot more realistic. Again, it's a Carenado aircraft, so it's never going to be absolutely perfect and spot on, but again, it just feels a little bit better to the PC-12. The PC-12 just doesn't feel right to me. It uses the same alpha and beta range technique, so you press a button or key to toggle the reverse thrusters, and that will toggle you between the alpha and beta ranges. Generally, yeah, it's a good aircraft. I believe it's one of, if not the best seller that Carenado have. I could certainly understand that. It's a turboprop aircraft. People like turboprops, they like having that extra power. Would I recommend it? I would, if you are attracted to turboprops. If you want an aircraft that can go or reasonably substantial distances in a reasonable amount of time. If the visuals bother you, then that might be an issue. You kind of live with it. I wish that we'd have a kind of combination between this and the PC-12. If we had the clarity of the instruments that we do have on the PC-12 on this aircraft, then it would be a really simple recommendation. It's a good aircraft. I can understand why it's so popular. In general, it's an interesting aircraft to fly. Not overly complex. You can start the aircraft from memory. The approach is simple enough. Find on landing you're looking at about 75 knots, cross the threshold, get to your aim point, bring the power back to idle, and then you're controlling the descent rate with aircraft pitch. It's very simple to fly, very simple to land. I would definitely recommend it. So I hope you found that useful, and as always, feel free to like, comment and subscribe.